Howdy folks. So today I wanted to show you something that I've had in my possession for quite a while now, and it's kind of a little piece of history and it's kind of cool. And no, they are not orange drop capacitors. Unfortunately, the original label for the original box of these components has degraded to the point where this is about all I've got left. I happen to have 28, I believe, of these things, and these are tiny integrated circuits, although they're not actually called integrated circuits. These are from 1966 and are some of the earliest integrated circuits ever manufactured. In fact, they were so old that the term integrated circuit didn't really exist yet. These things were marketed under names like Micronets and Seminets and other things like that. The term integrated circuit came around quite a few years later. These are made by a company called Sperry Semiconductor, or Sperry Rand Corporation, and they turned into Fairchild Semiconductor, if I'm correct. And the company doesn't really exist anymore today. These parts are part number SR015, and you can see the date code at the bottom, 24th week, 1966. The Sperry logo has this little white pink dot on all of them, unfortunately. I'm not sure exactly what that was to signify. And we've got pin 1 up there in the corner. This is a 9-pin device, or a 10-pin if you want to count the one that's been cut off. And it's a very thin package. And the leads are exceptionally thin. They're very, very flimsy, which kind of makes me think how they actually fitted these. I would assume that they would have been through-hole, but these are very flimsy leads, and they're not pre-bent downwards like a dual inline package. So it's kind of intriguing. It almost looks like they'd solder them like surface mount, but of course they're too long for something like that. I'm actually kind of intrigued as to how they would have mounted these. So anyway, I searched around for these to see if I could figure out anything about them, what they were, what they did. My first guess was that they did either amplification, they were some kind of op-amp, because that was obviously quite a common thing, or some sort of logic gate. And it took me quite a while before I eventually figured out what these were. Someone from the University of British Columbia took another Sperry part of a similar vintage, the 1M4, and decapped it, looked at it under a microscope, and determined it was resistor-transistor logic in the form of a dual NOR gate. And they sort of reverse engineered it from the die and drew a schematic, etc., etc. So I thought, okay, well, if mine, it looks very similar, so mine, let's assume it's resistor-transistor logic, and let's assume it's a logic gate. So knowing that, I basically tried all the pin combinations. I applied voltage to I assumed that the pinout basically from this other part was the same, at least in the ground respect. This pin down at the bottom here is ground, I believe. So by knowing the ground, I just sort of put small amount of voltage on each pin in turn, and basically came up with an all possible combinations thing in a big table, and I deduced that this is a dual NOR gate with separate power supplies for each gate. It's resistor transistor logic, and I'll pop in a shot of the schematic diagram that I traced out. I was able to measure 2 of the resistances for the 2 power pins. The other resistors for the bases of the transistors I was unable to measure, of course, without decapping the device. I don't really have a way of doing that at the moment. The resistors for the power supply are not the same value as that of the 1M4, which is why this is definitely a different part. It's not simply a rebrand of the 1M4. But all of them are exactly the same. Some of them have been mangled, particularly one of them. This was the one that I actually did all the testing on, and unfortunately I had to kind of mangle the pins in order to get my my clip leads onto them. The pin pitch is actually relatively small, and then I have another fragment of the lens, unfortunately, or a fragment of the label. And this label here, so you can see the semiconductor, the word semiconductor, it's Sperry Rand Corporation on the bottom, Norwalk, Connecticut, and then part of some sort of handwritten number. So I can figure out that these are from the Univac computer. The best of my research told me that they were used in the Univac computer. So I've never seen any pictures of these in use or on a board anywhere, but if anyone knows more about these, I'd really love to know, just because I have so many of them, and they're just kind of cool. So if anyone knows where they come from, what they were exactly used on, where they were used, any kind of speeds, power, anything like that. I mean, I've run them up to about 6 or 7 volts, and they seem to be fine with it. I haven't done any speed tests on these. They're obviously being RTL. They're not going to be very fast, but maybe if anyone wants, I can try that stuff in the future. I'll hook these up to a function generator and see how high I can clock these before they stop gnawing. So anyway, thought I'd just give you a little look at that, considering the fact that these are basically undocumented online. So hopefully that was somewhat interesting. Thanks for watching.